Hi everyone. Welcome to the conference number 6 of the Phase B of this self-knowledge course. In this conference we will talk about the 7 churches and the 7 chakras. The objective of this conference is to allow us to understand what the churches and the chakras are, how we can develop them through the inner work, and how this work gradually transforms us from rational animals to men, then from men to supermen, and finally from supermen to absolute men. In the previous Phase B lecture, we were talking about the 7 centers of the human machine, and how to balance them to achieve the transformation of our Mercury. It's important that we remember the difference between the 7 centers, the 7 chakras and the 7 churches. As even though they are closely related to each other, the centers belong to our physical body, the chakras to our soul, and the churches to our spirit. A church is a center of wisdom. Or better to say, it is a consciousness. If we carefully observe each one of those 7 churches, we see that they are located in the different centers of the human machine. And in these same points we find the intelligence that manages the wisdom of each one of our internal bodies. The churches are commonly known by the names given to the 7 churches in Asia, in that book known as Revelations. These are the Church of Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia and Laodicea. What these really represent are those centers of wisdom that exist both within us and in the higher worlds of consciousness. A chakra is a magnetic center, which is connected through some very fine nerves to the corresponding center of wisdom, or church. It should be noted that the location of these chakras is not in the center or church, but rather the chakras are located externally and work by capturing cosmic energy. In our body there are many chakras. However, in relation to the development of our spiritual part, the most important are these 7, known as the root, prostatic or uterine chakra, solar plexus, heart, throat, frontal, and crown chakra. All human beings have these chakras, but currently they rotate in an inverted way, as they should rotate clockwise, and they are not properly developed. Now, what we must understand is that the cerebrospinal system has 7 special points where internally the 7 churches of each human being are located, but in a higher dimension. These 7 churches are 7 wisdoms or 7 consciousnesses. The 7 churches exist in the microcosm and in the macrocosm. The 7 churches of our spinal cord shine with happiness with the sacred fire of the Holy Spirit. This means that in order to open these churches within us and access their wisdom, the first step will be to light the sacred fire of the Kundalini, through the work of balancing the centers and the practice of supersex. And as we develop our different bodies, we will have access to these centers of wisdom. Our inner churches are the doors that give us access to the 7 glorious cathedrals of the superior worlds. So once we manage to open the internal church, this immediately gives us permission to access the corresponding church of wisdom of the macrocosm. The 7 churches hang precious and divine within the spinal canal of the famous Nadi Chitra, which is the central conduit within the spinal cord through which the sacred fire of Kundalini ascends. As the 7 churches open, the chakras or sympathetic plexuses awaken in a positive way. It is important to analyze and understand this point, since it is with inner work that these chakras must awaken. We know that there are many methods to awaken and activate the chakras and their powers quickly, but this is counterproductive, since if psychic powers are acquired without having previously done the required work of purification and inner development through psychological death and spiritual birth, it will be our psychological defects that will manage these faculties, leading us to make mistakes and reverse our inner progress. The Sanskrit word chakra means wheel or disc. The chakras are vortices of energy, round and vibrating magnetic wheels. All the functions of the body, nervous, digestive, circulatory, respiratory, genital, etc., are under the control of the chakras and their corresponding nerve plexuses. There in our body, where a vein, a nerve, and an artery intersect, there is a plexus. So plexus is called all connection of nerves, arteries and veins. The chakras are located in the same place as the plexuses, although in a different dimension. The cosmic energy is received and distributed by the chakras, which function as accumulators, carrying out their work like dynamos or batteries. They allow the passage and transformation of the cosmic energy that they absorb into vital or nervous energy. The energy received by the chakras circulates through certain conduits or channels called nadis. They are of different sizes and are dispersed everywhere in our body like the nerves, veins and arteries. The number of nadis in our body is 72,000. But there are three main channels that are actually represented in that famous universal symbol of medicine, known as Mercury's caduceus, which is actually a symbol of initiation, and of the regenerative power of the sexual energy. Here we can observe the main channel. It is known as Sushumna, which is the one that runs inside the spinal column and goes from the coccyx to the top of the head. And within this channel, there is another channel called Nadi Chitra. The Nadi Chitra is the channel by which the sexual energy of those who have already lit the sacred fire of Kundalini rises. Those who have not yet achieved the level of energetic purity that allows the lighting of the sacred fire, when they practice supersex, their energy ascends through the Sushumna. The other two conduits represented by two rising serpents are two energetic conduits that cross around the spine, that are known as Ida and Pingala. Ida begins in the right testicle and ends in the left nostril, this in the case of the men, reversed in the case of the women. Pingala begins in the left testicle and ends in the right nostril in the case of the men and reversed in women. And it is through these two conduits that the energy of singles ascends when they practice the sublimation of energy that we saw in Conference 46 of Phase A. Sushumna ascends from the coccyx to the point between the eyebrows. Ida and Pingala ascend from the sexual glands coiling around the Sushumna. The seven chakras are rooted in the astral body, they are the senses of the astral body, and they are in close relationship with the seven churches. Because actually, the seven chakras are under the control of the seven churches. Each one of these churches, as centers of wisdom, begins to develop from the first mountain, with the work of creation of the solar bodies, and as we eliminate the defects that we discover and understand. The released sparks increase the light, or wisdom of the church to which they correspond. In the second mountain, or mountain of psychological death, when the causal selves die, the churches remain resplendent with all their beauty and brilliance. When the initiate goes through the process of death and resurrection, they remain in all their splendor. The process lived in the second mountain is called the apocalypse or end by fire or love. And there, the seven already developed consciousnesses form what is called the consciousness of our being, the seven wisdoms. But at that point, the cosmic consciousness is still missing, the remaining 1% of consciousness that we will develop in the work of the third mountain. We will be talking in detail about the three mountains of initiation in later Phase B lectures. With the work of the first mountain, we will fabricate our human soul, when we finish creating the first 5 solar bodies. That work will turn us into true men. With the work of the second mountain and the elimination of all our ego or psychological defects, we will go from being men to being supermen. And with the work of the third mountain, we will go from supermen to absolute men, once we finish this work of self-knowledge, and we merge with our divine being, thus achieving the self-realization. Let's now see a chart, in which we can see the relationship that exists between each center, chakra and church. We will see its location within our spine. Also the regent or part of the being, that governs the respective church and the consciousness that it manages. We will also see how many laws govern it, what are the conditions to open this church of wisdom within us, and the element of nature that the development of that consciousness will allow us to govern. At the level of our sexual center, we will find the root chakra or Muladhara. It is a chakra that looks like a wonderful flower with 4 petals, that once awakened, gives us the faculty of having power over the earth element. We also find there, but on a spiritual level, the Church of Ephesus. This is in our spine, at the level of the coccyx bone. The regent who governs this church is the Archangel Gabriel, who manages the consciousness of the physical body. This church is governed by 48 laws, and the conditions so that with the initiatory work we can open this church, will be to develop patience, achieve great continuity and discipline in our inner work, and achieve chastity. This will be related to the work on the first initiation of major mysteries. The opening of this church, as well as the development of this chakra, will give us dominion over the earth element, as well as over the gnomes and pygmies, who are the elementals of the earth. At the level of our instinctive center, we will find the prostatic or uterine chakra, also known as Swadhisthana. A chakra that looks like a wonderful flower with 6 petals, that once awakened gives us the faculty of the conscious awareness of the nature of all beings. We also find there, but on a spiritual level, the Church of Smyrna. This is in our spine, at the level of the sacrum bone. The regent who governs this church is the Archangel Raphael, who manages the consciousness of the vital body. This church is also governed by 48 laws. The conditions so that with the inner work we can open this church is to pass and emerge victorious in many trials of tribulation and poverty. These trials will be related to the second initiation of major mysteries, and in the case of the male, the opening of this church, as well as the completion of said initiation, will involve patiently going through a trial of prison. The opening of this church, as well as the development of this chakra, will give us dominion over the water element, as well as over the undines and nereids, who are the elementals of the water. At the level of our emotional center, we will find the solar plexus chakra or Manipura. A chakra that looks like a flower with 10 petals, that once awakened gives us the faculty of telepathy. We also find there, but on a spiritual level, the Church of Pergamum. This is in our spine, at the level of the navel. The regent who governs this church is the Archangel Uriel, who manages the consciousness of the astral body. This church is governed by 24 laws, and the conditions so that we can open this church in the third initiation will be to develop conscious faith, even more chastity, loyalty, and obedience to our inner Father. The opening of this church, as well as the development of this chakra, will give us dominion over the fire element, as well as over the salamanders, who are the elementals of the fire. At the level of our intellectual center, we will find the heart chakra or anahata, that looks like a wonderful flower with 12 petals. Once this chakra is awakened will gives us the faculty of intuition. We also find there, but on a spiritual level, the Church of Thyatira. This is in our spine, at the level of the heart. The regent who governs this church is the Archangel Michael, who manages the consciousness of the mental body. This church is governed by 12 laws, and the conditions so that we can open this church in the work on the fourth initiation will be many works of charity and service, further developing conscious faith, and further developing the virtue of patience. It will also be necessary to learn not to criticize, and do a lot of sacrificial work for humanity. The opening of this church, as well as the development of this chakra, will give us dominion over the air element, as well as over the sylphs and sylphids, who are the elementals of the air. At the level of our motor center, we will find the throat chakra or Vishuddha. A chakra that looks like a flower with 16 petals, that once awakened gives us the faculty of the magic ear. We also find there, but on a spiritual level, the Church of Sardis. This is in our spine, at the level of the larynx. The regent who governs this church is the Archangel Samael, who manages the consciousness of the causal body. This church is governed by 6 laws. The conditions so that with the work on the 5th initiation we can open this church, will be to verify the death of all the defects worked up to that point, and behead Jezebel, a demon of the mind, related to dark spiritualist theories. The opening of this church, as well as the development of this chakra, will give us dominion over the ether element, as well as over the punctas, who are the elementals of the ether. At the level of our superior emotional center, we will find the frontal chakra or ajna. A chakra that looks like a flower with 2 petals, representing the 2 souls, human and divine, that join at that point of the initiatory path. Once this chakras is awakened, it gives us the faculty of clairvoyance. We also find there, but on a spiritual level, the Church of Philadelphia. This is in our spine, at the level of the pituitary gland. The regent who governs this church is the Archangel Zachariel, who manages the consciousness of the Buddhic body. This church is governed by 6 laws, and the conditions to open this church will be to learn to see without judging, because at that point we will be developing the capacity of seeing it all, or clairvoyance. We will also be required to have maximum accuracy and precision in everything we do. The opening of this church, as well as the development of this chakra, will give us dominion over the Akash. At the level of our superior intellectual center, we will find the crown chakra or Sahasrara. A chakra that looks like a magnificent flower with 1,000 petals, that once awakened gives us the faculty of the clairvoyance. We also find there, but on a spiritual level, the Church of Laodicea. This is in our spine, at the level of the pineal gland. The regent who governs this church is the Archangel Oriphel, who manages the consciousness of the atmic body. This church is governed by only 3 laws, and the conditions to open this church will be to know how to remain silent. This because at that point, we will be developing the capacity of knowing it all, or clairvoyance. The opening of this church as well as the development of this chakra, will give us more dominion over the Akash. Here we can see a complete relationship between the chakras and the wisdom churches. We can also appreciate here, the external location of the chakras. And this was today's conference. I hope that this topic has given you clarity about our internal constitution, and encourages you to seek to develop yourself internally through inner work, so that you experience the gradual transformations that will occur in you. I invite you to our next Phase B conference, in which we will be talking in detail about initiation and the different trials that it entails. Don't miss that interesting topic.